Before we get started in our kettlebell intervals, we're just going to start with a warm up. So we want to start warming up that hinge in the hips. We're just going to have our kettlebell in front of us, screwing the feet into the floor to make sure that you're hinging back through the hips, pressing back, keeping that chest upright so you're keeping as much of a neutral spine as you can. And we're just focusing on the hinge and extension through the hips, so the flexion and extension. Coming up to a full extension, you want to make sure that those quads are tight, those glutes are flexed, and you're grabbing through with the inner thigh. Now, staying in that hinged position with the knees soft, you're going to make sure the weight's back in your heels. You're pressing your glutes back. You're grabbing that kettlebell with palms facing forward. You're keeping the chin gently tucked, making sure that you're pulling back, retracting the shoulder blades as you pull with those elbows, making sure that the back is working. Going into your TRX warm-up, we're just going to start with a standing squat, straight arms up. Keep the TRX nice and tight. So it'll take you a few repetitions just to place yourself. You want to be on a little bit of an angle here. You can see I'm working on that flexion and extension. I'm warming up those shoulders to stay back and down, okay? Using those lat muscles, keeping the TRX nice and tight, leaning into it as I flex forward into that full extension. This is just going to help me stay in neutral and to warm up that shoulder and that upper body as I'm getting ready to work through the TRX. Now, push-ups, you want to make sure the TRX is in between the earlobes and the shoulders. You're pressing through down towards the floor. Notice I have an offset foot stance. I'm up on both toes. I'm keeping my hips nice and neutral, okay? You're going to make sure that you're keeping your abs in, you're not dropping your head, and you're not letting your shoulder blades pinch back. You want to keep your shoulder blades nice and wide. Let your arms come away from your body if you need to as you press through with the hands, utilizing most of the chest, trying to refrain from using just arm and wrist. Breathing out, pulling the abdominals in as you grab that breath from the bottom of your pelvic floor or your lower abs and breathe it all the way out to two sets of 10 of each of the warm-up exercises before we start with the intervals. Your timed intervals are going to be 2 to 3 sets of each interval with 30 seconds of work and 20-second rest. Use Gym Boss interval timer or your smartphone. We're going to start with a two-handed swing and superset with a TRX tricep extension. With your swing, we did the warm-up, we did the hinges. We're going to let that kettlebell, pick your size wisely. You don't want too light of a kettlebell. We're just going to do a hinge through the hips, press through. Make sure you're coming into full extension without arching back. So you're just letting the weight of that kettlebell come forward, keeping the weight planted through your heels, 30 seconds of work, 20-second rest, and then we're moving on to the tricep TRX extension. So offset foot stance, just like in the push-ups, hands are overhead. Don't let your shoulder blades fall. Keep those shoulder blades back and down and abdominals in. Keep your arms parallel to the floor. Okay, I always pretend like I have a piece of wood underneath my triceps, so I'm keeping them level with the floor. I'm bending through the elbows, keeping everything else in my body nice and neutral on the same plane, and just flexion and extension of the elbows. Use that front leg if you need to push. Good time to stop the video and finish your other 2 sets of the previous set. Moving on to cleans and TRX rows, 30 seconds of work. You're going to do 3 repetitions on one side and then switch sides down at the bottom, right? So making sure you're not rotating too much through your torso, keeping your hips hinged back. If you do rotate, it's through the upper body and not through the knees or the hips. So you're just bringing that up. We'll do a more instructional video in one of my other videos if you're having trouble with some of the moves in kettlebells. This workout is not the one. It's a little bit more advanced. Going into a TRX row, want to make sure that we start into a neutral position. So feet are both together, decreasing your angle. Okay, so getting closer to the anchor of the TRX is going to make it harder. My feet are slipping, so I went into an offset foot stance. And as you go down, you're getting full extension of the arms. It's a great stretch. And we're making sure that we're pulling back using the shoulder blades, not using as much of the arms as you would think. This is a back exercise. We want to be making sure we're utilizing the back, keeping the head in between your shoulders. All right, you can also stay with both legs. Okay, again, a good time to stop the video and do another 2 or 3 sets. Moving on to bicep curls and alternating single arm swings. So we're just picking up the kettlebell just like a regular swing, except for up at the top, you're going to be alternating and switching hands. So everything stays the same. Knees over top of the toes, feet screwed in, hinge that booty back, keep the chest open, keep the hips neutral. And you're just switching that kettlebell with that full force up at the top, breathing out as you come into that full flexion, flexing through the glutes and the quads. 30 seconds, and then 20-second break, moving on to the bicep curls. Start at your end range. So you're going to start with the TRX nice and tight. The pinky fingers are up into the earlobes. The elbows are pointing up towards the center of the TRX. You can go into both legs, but you see how I'm slipping. I'm going to go into that offset foot stance and only put the weight that I need in that back leg just to keep myself from slipping. So you're in control of the resistance, making sure you're not rotating through the hips. You want to keep everything nice and neutral, and you're just breathing out as you pull up, pulling up with those elbows. Moving on to set 4, another good time to stop the video, finish your 2 sets of the previous one. Moving into a single leg burpee. This one you're going to want to make sure if you need balance, you have something to hold on to. But you're just putting one foot into both stirrups, dropping down into that lunge, and then coming down into a plank. Or if you want to increase the overall resistance, then you're going to be kicking that leg up a little bit higher, getting a little bit more of pressure in through the anterior delts, in through the pecs. Great core workout. Make sure you tuck nice and tight into a ball on the way up into the lunge. Goblet squat, so you're going to come down. Keep the bell really close to your chest, if not touching. Elbows are tucked in. Squatting down as far as you can keep neutral hip. Everybody's range of motion is going to look different on this. Trying to keep it nice and even through both hip joints as you come down and come up. Come into that full flexion just like in a kettlebell swing. All right. Breathing out as you come up into that full extension. Stop the timer and finish the other 2 to 3 sets of that exercise. Going on to the left side single leg lunge. So we're doing one side at a time of the lunge in each set. So that leg is going to be burnt out. So now this leg is going to feel fresh. Doing the burpee on the left side now. Getting into utilizing, you can just stay in the plank. So I showed you last time the more advanced version of kicking up the leg. You can also just stay here coming down into a plank. You can add a hop if you wanted. I like to not necessarily add a hop, especially when I'm working on full extension through my glutes on my kettlebell exercises. So it just keeps all that momentum happening in my posterior chain. You're either going to pair this one up with a single leg snatch. You're going to do 3 or 4 on each side, and then you're going to alternate between. So I like to take like a single arm swing in between my snatches. Right? If you are not familiar with a snatch, this is not a good workout to start working on your snatches or start doing it for the first time. We'll do those in workouts to come. So if you're not doing the snatch or have never done the snatch before, keep it nice and crisp and clean to a clean and a press. So you're just coming up nice and close to your body for 3, pressing it through with that shoulder press after you've maintained that full extension. Okay, so 3 on each side, working through that 30 seconds. Just do as many as you can. Try and keep it even per reps and per side that you're doing. And that's your workout. So you're going to stop your timer here and finish another set of the 2 or 3, and you're done for the day.